those little hardships. I mean, anyone who watches me on Friday nights knows that I step right into hardship. So it definitely wouldn't be new. All right, so I talked about my palette before. And my medium is just black oil. And so this will run down the page if I'm not terribly careful. But for the most part, it's all going to be on this initial wash and then some early shadows. Beyond that, it's going to be all pure paint. I don't use a whole lot of oil, but I do like to have at least a little bit of grease down first. And that helps the brush flow instead of stuttering and stopping everywhere, especially on canvas panel. Canvas panel, this is a particularly good one. It's not terribly absorbent, but it does have absorbency and it has texture. And when you combine the both of them, that's a little too much. It grabs too much paint off the brush. And so I prefer a rather non-absorbent ground like an oil prime white when I have canvas weave, and I prefer a little bit of absorbency when I have a panel. But I don't like both absorbency and texture. That's just too much. So I'm going to use maybe a little bit more oil than I normally use to let the brush flow instead of absorbing into the surface and getting stuck in all this surface pattern with the weave of the linen. Okay, good to go. So, you know, whether I start with umber or sienna or something, it doesn't really matter. As long as it's a dark that I can draw with. And I'm just going to get some just cursory ideas going. So this will give me an idea as to where I'm going, how much negative space I want to the outside borders. And I'm doing something kind of on purpose, and I'm just doing the skinny version of forms. I'm going to establish the center line for the idea that the skull is going to be roughly symmetrical. This head is tilted, but it's not turned. So the features will be fairly symmetrical to this base of the skull. And so, again, just getting some ideas down, nothing set in stone. I'm quite willing to move all of this stuff to just get myself suggestions and nothing that I'm going to adhere to if it doesn't work. And so I'm thinking right now that all of my decisions from here on, if I use this mass conception idea, again, not very dog-like shapes, except for maybe that hint at the nose, but I'm going to make all my decisions to shrink because I don't want to compromise any of these negative spaces. I think I need them. For one, this ear is going to get out pretty broad, and I'm going to measure all this, but I'm just going to feel some shapes for right now, and they're just going to be a suggestion. And so I'm going to measure after all that. But first, I want to feel the composition. I want to say that, you know, there's a sequence of shapes that get me somewhat close and help me decide on my overall proportions. It helps me make major decisions like, well, as I elaborate this, am I letting it grow or am I shrinking it down? Or is it going to be, you know, pretty close to the right proportion to where it's going to be a little bit of both? But right now, that ear is too small. This ear is pretty proportionate, but the head is going to shrink. I need more room for the forehead, so this is just going to end up, instead of being the eye, it's going to end up being the brow. And as I hone the shapes down from super simple to a little bit more specific, I'm going to have that brush handy for erasing. And I'm going to get this blocked in pretty aggressively. So there's my little eraser, because as I shrink this down, that nose was going to be too big. And again, that could have been the right proportion if I allowed the head to grow, and I don't want the head to grow because of the composition. And so everything here is likely to change just simply because nothing is sacred yet. I don't have a detailed eye to worry about. I don't have this idea that I have to build around a tiny little area like an eye. Yeah, that's a suggestion of an eye, but it's not anything that would stop me from moving it. And so I'm still feeling like I'm a little big, and I'm probably going to do something about it with these this honing in. So like all these shapes are going to shrink. This cheek is going to come in and here, and again, that's precisely what this step is all about. I don't expect anything to be right. I expect everything to be just a mere suggestion. And then as I build, it's going to be because these little notes start to coalesce. So I'm going to look at 3 different proportional tools to get some just very simple measurements in place. And that's going to be that any 2 units can compare to any other 2. So, and that's height and width. So if I say, well, what's the half from the top of the head to the chin? Well, it might hit a landmark, but if it doesn't, I don't want to use that. But I can say the overall width of the eyes compared to from the brow line to the nose, are they equals? Right now, it's sort of suggesting that. I don't really have that drawing mark in yet, but that's something I'll keep in mind as I build simple shapes. And simple shapes, I don't like to put labels on them. If I see a shape, I'll draw it, and that's regardless of whether it's a shadow or a facial feature or the outside contour. It doesn't really, or sometimes like a dog might have a patch of different colored fur or something, or a different type of animal, but whatever is there, I'll use it as a drawing tool. Nothing is formulaic in that regard because I treat all this as abstract. I can make up a dog. It'd be very generic looking. And there's a very specific dog in front of me. It has a great light source, which describes volume. And I don't really have to make up much at this point. I'm going to make a lot of creative decisions when I like the sort of simple base that I'm putting in. And so, yeah, the artistry and the style and everything, that comes later for me. Right now, I'm not worried at all about how pretty it looks, but I am concerned about how my composition feels, and I am concerned about how these simple shapes form patterns. Like if I drew a line through the bottoms of the ears, do I hit the right space on that nasal bone, which right now is pretty close. I think maybe I could even raise the nose a tiny bit, but again, it's not an eye, it's a shape. It's not a nose, it's a shape. It's all just getting broken down into some usable information, and nothing is sacred because it's just information. Everything's going to get shifted around. And if my proportions aren't exactly like this dog, most of the time I'm really okay with that, as long as it's believable to the third person objective viewer. So really at the end of the day, if somebody were to come into a gallery, what would their first impression tell them? Well, that's usually going to endure the next round of scrutiny too. So if, say, it has really cool brushwork or great details or really blended and soft and smooth and everything, that's not how people are going to judge it at first. At first, it's going to be a sequence of compositional design and those major contrasts that you could see from across the room. And then beyond that, if they have that good first impression, then they'll either reinforce the idea that they like it, or they'll reinforce the idea that they didn't like it. And that first impression is more important to me than the detail phase. I really like this idea of abstract, simple shapes like this, right? And so if this pattern looks pretty good to me, then I proceed to break it down further, but I don't graduate from the drawing. The drawing is constant. So this is drawing on its simplest level, and I like to scrutinize this phase before I move on to the next phase, which is going to be abstract simplification. So all abstract simplification means is there is going to be a network of shapes, colors, and values, which I'm describing the same thing. Like each one of these patches are going to be it's going to have a shape, it's going to have a proportion to it. It's going to have a value of the color, and it's going to have the color, right? And if that comes together well, then I'm in really, really good shape. And so you can see that I'm moving a lot of things around. But nothing with a preconceived notion. Nothing, I said nothing sacred either. You can see that even things like the body and this pattern of shadow, every one of these marks can be a measuring tool. And so if I'm mapping out this shadow, this edge can be compared to something high with a plumb line. This proportion can be measured with a simple one-to-one relationship to something else. This negative shape is already too big, and then I can question is like, well, should this point be higher in relationship to the nose and break this gap down? Should the ear come down in relationship to the face? Is it a little bit of both? In this case, the plumb line tells me that right about dead center of the nose would get the shoulder to here, and that made that negative shape almost perfect. So again, I don't have to guess right. I just have to get close enough to make the next judgment. Oh, shoot. Does anybody mind if this is recorded? Now, I can give an absolute promise that nobody will ever hear the conversation because it's really just for editing a video. I remove the audio, and then I dub over it with, my thoughts on the painting.
I don't mind.
Okay. Like I said, it's an absolute promise that nobody will hear the conversation. So you want to say really wild things, go for it. I just hope it doesn't stop anybody from talking, because again, I have no desire to
Recording in progress.
have the chatter broadcast. Oh my gosh, this wasn't even showing itself.
Okay. I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people wouldn't. I mean, maybe people would get enjoyment out of the conversation, but I can be a lot more concise when I'm dubbing over a video than just kind of yammering. But I like chit chat too, so we don't have to talk about art stuff the whole time. Geez, a lot of people are joining this time. Awesome. Okay. All right, so we're back. And I'll share the screen. Uh-oh. What happened? Are you seeing? Yeah, you're seeing the video. This is Zoom. All right, good. It was giving me some kind of warning. Yeah, it was giving me some kind of warning. I was like, well, what's going on here? Okay. Anyway, we're back. So the other thing that's concerning about this painting is this midtone really won't work. So the background I usually don't address until I get the big fields of value for the subject matter, but the value of the background might become an early factor this time, earlier than usual. And again, I just like I like to have a plan, but I also like to be malleable to suit the painting that's in front of me and the materials that are in front of me. So this tone is normally really great, but in this case, it's going to be too warm for this warm dog. So I think it'll be a distraction. All right, so now I've got a lot of things checking a lot of boxes. So I'm going to stop and measure, just real simple measurements. Again, I will continually draw throughout the entire journey from start to finish, because as the shapes get more complex, I'll see those smaller connections even better. And then, you know, I'll make these little adjustments to make sure all shapes fit in that abstract pattern. And so it's starting to get a little bit more complicated, but I can tell you some things that are already kind of availing themselves to be a little off. And this is the overall, the eye is within this mask. There's like a dark gray that's around the eye itself. Well, that mask is also here too. So I'm seeing an asymmetry here that I want to address, and I like that shape, so I'm going to adjust this one more than that one. Might adjust both a little bit, but I do want to preserve that little bit of light on the cheek, and so I think I have the room to erase that out. That's not giving me a whole lot of clarity. Like I said, this warm on warm, it'll work. It just has to, I'm gonna have to get a little bit of balance in there soon. Oh man, I just used my eraser brush.
How will you balance? Because I mean, even the dog, the picture that I'm looking at, he's, I mean, all the colors and values are warm. How are you going to balance that?
Well, cool is relative for one, and for two, there are cool elements to this dog, like the nose, the mouth, the eyes.
Okay.
But really, warm and cool is just a function of what is the light doing to the fur? Is it warming it up or cooling it down? So then, if that light is warming up the fur, then it's not warming up the shadows. So we're creating a little bit of color balance between warm and cools. And again, that's just a form of contrast, but that doesn't necessarily mean cool. I don't need to make the dog blue to make the shadows warm, and I don't need to make the shadows hot to make that balance. It's just relative. It's if it's a weak light, then it's not happening much. If it's a strong light, it's happening big time. And you know, you put down guesses at first, and when those guesses get down, then you adjust, because some things might present themselves as looking pretty good. Other things might present themselves as, you know, just seeming like too much, and you'll scale it back. So I like to have an open dialogue with the painting, especially Alla Prima, because when you're doing multiple sittings, it's going to be, you know, you're going to come in fresh with fresh eyes on a second sitting. And you're going to see things that you weren't seeing on that previous sitting. You know, you have a lot longer to analyze it and change things. But with Alla Prima, you got to be pretty spontaneous. So I'm going to take a big series of guesses, and those guesses are going to get me only so close. I'm not going to think of anything as accurate until pretty late in the drawing, to where, you know, we're going to get a sequence of events. So this is going from mass conception to the first round of abstract simplification. It's just simply light and shadow, although that's probably not dark enough. And I want to see this sort of base color of fur. What I don't need to do is map out every little wrinkle. The wrinkles have to have a feel to them, but they don't have to have a count. I don't have to make sure that every wrinkle is there.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering too, because it can get tricky. Sometimes wrinkles just, I mean, if I'm painting wrinkles, they just come out as straight lines and.
Well, the cool thing is they can be used as measuring tools. It's just how much you adhere to them. So if you start by copying a few of them, great, right? They did their job, and then let's say that you have 6 and there's really 7 there. Like, so what? You know, um, as long as it passes that test, that first impression from across the room, the viewer of the work, does it relate to their life and their experience of dogs with this like quizzical look that this one has? And it's kind of like those lace tablecloths that I've done so many times. I start by copying the pattern a bit, but eventually it becomes mine. Like, I get a good algorithm for how I'm handling the lace, and I don't really get too concerned as to whether I have the right thread count. As long as it comes together and that first impression really says that not only is there lace here, but it has that sort of undulation of the cloth. It describes form. It reinforces that story of the light, where we have that direction, intensity, and color of the light. If that's happening on the lace as well, that thing is going to be pretty believable, even if I made my own pattern happen instead of the pattern that's there. And so I'll do the same thing with fur. I'll do the same thing with, hairs on a portrait model. I'll do the same thing with wrinkles on a dog's forehead. It's like, yeah, they're something to consider early on, but they're not something to be kind of wed to. I don't need every detail to read right for this to look like a dog. And not only some dog, but this dog in this light, this expression, this breed. I want all those things, but there's certain things that are going to be important for that, and other things that are going to be passable. And with Alla Prima, you got that time factor involved, and I'm not gonna quibble over insignificant details. I'm gonna quibble over major masses of light and shadow. That's super important. I want to feel like there's a skull in there for structure, even if I don't specifically know this breed's skull. Well, I'll just tell you for a fact that I don't, but I do have an anatomy sense that goes from animal to animal. I mean, all animals. What's that?
I said they don't have a liver to live by superior like Vanessa.
I bet they do. I mean, the comparative anatomy is pretty good. I mean, you can usually discern a lot of things from human anatomy into a dog. Like, their ankle structure and knee structure is a little different, sure, but they probably have similar muscles. Like corrugator supercilii, that's super expressive on this dog right now. Probably more so than you'd find on a human, but it's the same muscle. It's gonna pull the brow inward. I don't know.
That's how they make the puppy eyes.
Yeah, I gotta make puppy eyes, of course. So just like I was working this eye, I took a little break from it because if you look at one area for too long, you're likely to get eye fatigue. So it was a 2-part change. I wanted that little black or gray mask around the eye to match the one on this side, but it wasn't just change this one to suit that one. It was make this one bigger and make that one a little smaller. And again, I worked on it a little bit, and then I gave a little mental visual break, and then I went back to it with a fresh look and made that next part of the change. So I think that's a nice touch. So I don't want to take the drawing any further. The simple drawing is there. The simple light and shadow. The pattern is there. The simple measurements are working for the most part, because it's too simple at best, but at worst are those simple shapes coming together. So like it's worth it if these major configurations are lining up pretty well, but they don't have to be exact yet because I haven't built in that specificity. I'm going to make small fine tunings as these shapes get more complicated. But what if I drew out every little wrinkle and every little shift in the face? Then I'd have to paint around it, and I really don't want to do that. It would be much better for me to just be able to blast through all this with midtones and not worry about any specificity. All these little marks that I put in were just nice for a little extra little bit of information. It's like, do these shapes fit in this overall scheme? But I'm quite willing to just blast right through them to get rid of them because they already did their job. And now, again, I'm willing to lose. I'm willing to lose everything but the major structure. Now I can see one thing that I want to address, and that is I'm a little off balance, and I think that's because I'm painting at an angle. I mean, excuses are awful. I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm just saying, like, there's an imbalance right now that I need to address, and I can make a decision on it. It's like, do I want to change this angle to suit this one according to the center line? The eyes and nose are pretty balanced. The jawline is pretty balanced to the center line. The ears don't really have to be because they're not. I mean, they're attached to bone, but not in any of this stuff. That's all cartilage. So that can be a little asymmetrical. They just can't be radically different sizes. And right now, that ear is a little big for this one. If I tilt this even further, it's not as bad as it looks on the screen. More people. Wow. Great. So glad to have people join. Oh man, I just used my eraser brush again. So I'm going to shrink this ear because it seems just too big for that one. I feel like the slightly smaller size of this ear is better for the overall composition. I don't feel like the height to width relationship is quite working yet, and that's okay. But I'm going to change that by saying that would I rather elongate the head or shorten or cut the width and make it skinnier? And I've decided to make the head longer to make that height to width relationship a little bit better. So again, this ear is too big. I'm going to only just make a quick note. I'm not going to bother erasing anything. And the reason is because I'm going to just blast through these edges anyway with the background. All right, so colors. I just need to take some guesses. I don't need to be terribly accurate. I'm going to go for a rather dark and pretty colorful middle tone. And I like, if I'm going to guess one way or the other, I'm going to guess too dark and I'm going to guess too colorful. And that's really quite on purpose because if I get this middle tone nice and rich, then it's going to push the shadows darker, which I can go ahead and do. In fact, I'm going to, because this middle tone is going to drown them out. So I'm just going to go ahead and get arguably a little too dark for right now, but we'll see. And I'm going cooler because I'm going to warm up the light. And again, I'm not going to be terribly picky. I'm going to leave behind some of this shadow as some of the little reflected light, and sometimes it's getting just a little glance of light. And I'll reiterate that I just don't care about the style yet. I don't need this to look pretty. I just need it to be informative. And it might take a little while before it comes together, and that's perfectly fine because this is just an exploratory phase. It's a very important phase, though. It's abstract. It's easy to move things around and measure. It's easy to see shapes because now there's information where there was none before. And so it's very very excusable as to why these shapes wouldn't be perfect yet. And that takes a lot of the pressure off too. You just simply can't make a mistake at this point. You're just building information. And so if I have that attitude, you know, I don't have to be nervous about, you know, whether the artistry is there yet. I don't have to worry about the details. I don't have to worry about anything except for how well is it fitting in the composition. Does it have a good structure to it? Does it have the ability to really push these initial values to get me somewhat close and then make the next right decision? And that's where this thing is going to really take off. So I realized my middle tone was going to be too dark compared to these that initial block-in of the middle tone, or compared to the shadows, I mean. So this was a very necessary step to darken these shadows first. A lot of times my shadows go in so dark that I don't need to. I just have to just blast in a middle tone. Even if it's too dark, it'll still read against that really dark shadow. And I did it a little differently this time. That's okay. And I'm going to start thinking categorically. And by that, I mean there's 5 values that I like to consider. This fur is receiving light in its a rounded form. So if I look at the sphere is going to have 5 major values that I consider. And that's going to be highlights within the light, turning shadows, reflected light, cast shadows within the shadow. And then I can worry about all this patchwork of middle tones that go brighter near highlights and darker near shadows. And it's just really easy to get that information down and then connect dots. So if it takes a little while to make that simplicity work, then I've saved myself a ton of detail work that was never going to work without that structure in place. That, or I'd have to slow way down and take a million points of measurement. And that just, to me, doesn't seem fun. So here we go. I'm going to blast in this middle tone, and I could do patchwork. I could say like this, the muzzle and the bridge of the nose and the temple are cooler patches, whereas the reds of the midtones have their mark, and then the transition to shadow with like a deep red. But I'm just going to go ahead and make a rather flat middle tone and then redraw all this stuff. And I'm going to balance it to the background. So I'm quite willing to lose all this. And the patchwork would look like this. So like, let's say I already had my values worked out. If I did a little color study on the side, I would have a lot of confidence with this, but I can take pretty good guesses at this stage of my career. I've been at it for a long time. But if I just said, well, this patch is a lot brighter, let's rework that a little bit, a lot brighter and a little bit warmer than, say, like these middle tones here. Yeah, I could do that. But just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to get a middle tone that's a little too dark and too colorful, quite on purpose, just simply because when I put my highlight values in, they're going to desaturate the color and have a nice dark value to read against. It already reads against a dark shadow, so that checks that box. I'm going to desaturate again in the transition values from light to shadow. And we tend to over brighten our start because we don't have very much contextual information. So some people might at this stage have already taken turpentine and blasted the entire background. And that's, you know, I'm not going to knock anybody's technique. I just tend not to use any solvent. I like to build up rich, thick paint. And you know, the start is going to be rebuilt better than before. It's going to get a lot more specificity as I build more information in context, going from that kind of focal area out to secondary places like the chest and the ears, and then out to the background and then back to the focal point where I'll start to draw in small specific spaces according to those 5 values of light. So if I break this down into 5 values in little patchworks of just categories, really, then I'm going to be really close. And then I can do my edge work, I can do bold brush strokes, I can do refinement into fine detail. I can look at the clock for Alla Prima because, you know, there's only so much time. But what I don't have to worry about is the value in between detail notes. I don't have to paint around tiny little shapes. I also don't have to make a perfect guess yet because I'll be adding information. And I can cover a lot of ground and get a ton of information. What I don't get is cool looking shapes or artistry. It looks kind of blobby right now. I'm very, very comfortable with this stage. And it might look like it went from having a kind of a cool underdrawing to these blobby shapes. It might seem like a step backwards, but all those little shapes did their job already. I don't have to worry about that. All I have to do is preserve light and shadow because that's really important. And then I'm going to build the context that this dog is in. And you'll see this come together really fast because this system works. It's going from simple to specific, from abstract to real. And if I can do it in a system that just works from start to finish in a linear fashion, I get done really quick. If it has little challenges along the way that don't quite work, that's actually good too, even though it doesn't feel as good. Because if the simple shapes don't work, the complex shapes are going to maybe come around eventually, but you're going to have a lot of fixing to do, and that's not fun. And you're going to have a lot of tiny little shapes to draw around, and that's not fun. And you're going to have just a lot of frustration trying to move things around that have all that careful consideration in there. And you could say that I could measure every little thing and never make a mistake. Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of true, but it's kind of not true too, in that you can make a lot of human error with measurement. And that's really frustrating when you're trusting that measurement over your eye and you just realize it's like, you know, I measured this. It has to be right. Why is it looking so bad? You know, and that to me, you know, kind of zaps the life out of this painting. But other people really enjoy measurement. They like to go super slow. They like to build from specific tight drawing into a painting that they can manage. And I don't have anything bad to say about that. Everyone's got to follow their path. I definitely work with people who prefer that way. I like this kind of real suggestive stage where I can really push the envelope of abstraction and then have some fun bringing it together. But I can see this stage being, I've seen it many times with students, this stage being nerve-wracking. It's like, well, it doesn't look like this dog yet, or I don't have the values, I don't have the edges, I don't have the fur shapes, I don't have the eye. You know, and that can be really a little disturbing. So I'm going to vignette this background out. We'll see what happens. I'm going to make that as a judgment call. Again, I did make some adjustments to the size of the ear, but I didn't bother erasing the old marks. In my head, I knew what I was doing, but it wouldn't show to anybody on camera. Excuse me. It wouldn't show to anybody on camera. It would just look like, you know, a bunch of really weird lines. But then again, you know, when you do the marks yourself, you kind of know what their purpose is. Hopefully you don't lose track of those. So I cut in, and I'll probably be bringing the ear back out into the background. That order is really nice. So you have a couple choices. You can very, very carefully paint around the dog. And I like this stage to be big brush strokes, big blocky masses, I don't like to be terribly careful because I'm only drawing the big shapes. But if I can go into those edges rather than carefully avoid them, two things happen. For one, I won't have this board, this value of brown reading in between the marks if I come just short. But also, too, is, you know, if you were going to stop it from being, you know, just perfectly touching these edges and not lose your drawing at all, then you have to paint so tight and carefully that you don't have that big splashy big block in where you're going to make decisions later. So it's not wrong to do really careful modeling around the edges, but don't leave that ghost edge of the board. That looks bad. That's usually the wrong value. And don't think you're going to get very far very fast if you're carefully like trying not to cut into your drawing at all. The other thing I'd say about that is, like, say if you were doing the sky holes of a tree, anyone who's been painting for a while probably has done this themselves, but if you're painting the sky holes of a tree, you might have noticed that the sky almost looks like it's sitting on top of the tree instead of the tree in front of the sky. And that looks bad. And so what I've come to enjoy is that if I'm going to do the sky holes, yeah, I can punch them into a solid mass of green, but I want the last brushstroke to be the tree in front of the sky, and that looks almost imperceptible, but it makes a big difference. And so I treat the dog the same way. If I cut into the edge just a little bit too much and then bring the dog back out, now the dog will be sitting on top of that background without much fuss. Like, I don't have to do this little finessey things to make it just right. It'll have that presence, like that feeling of immediacy. Okay, so here's highlight values. This is a pretty matte fur, so it doesn't have gleaming highlights, but it does have a pattern I can draw. And nothing's intended to be right yet. I'm just mapping things out. So I could redraw that little pattern. I'm just going to draw it negatively right now. This rich brown that I put in, this rich brown red, definitely has this place all over this dog. So at first attempt, I'm just going to paint around that red. Excuse me. Establishing it as a value that already kind of works. That perspective looks really weird. I hope it doesn't look as weird as it. Well, I guess everyone would be looking at that. Yeah, looks. I don't know. I'll bring the camera around sometime soon. I like that little patch of white down there. I wonder if I can. Nah, I'll leave it off. I like it, but it's not worth it because it's too far down on the composition. Sometimes you can make the decision, well, that's important, so I'm going to shift this whole painting for it. It's not that important. All right, so I've been putting in, I put in a cool turning shadow. The light is warm, but it's desaturated. I've got a really rich middle tone that I'm going to, build a lot more finesse for. But there are some gray patches that I want to get into that I don't know. I don't think they have much to do with I think it's just kind of like a sheen. I think it's probably that this dog probably is picking up other light sources in the room, but I like it. So a lot of times I'll purposely ignore secondary light sources unless it's landscape. For landscape, that's important. But in interiors, you're likely to have multiple light sources. You might have a primary light that's hitting the dog, but you might have a window pretty far away that puts like a silvery sheen on it. And if it looks good, use it. If it doesn't, ignore it. But I kind of like again, just, I think it was Malika, you were saying, well, it's like the dog is warm.
Yeah.
But there are relative cools, and some areas like in the ear here and in the nose, those are relative cools that in some circumstances would still be warm, but in the case of this dog, they're really cool. Sometimes it's just, no matter what you do, it's going to be cool. Like if you have a deep blue or something. But
And so you decided to put the cool in the shadows?
well, there's a sheen that's happening on the ear that I like. There's a lot of blue gray in the nose. And the nose itself is going to get really cool too. I just haven't addressed the nose yet. There's a deep gray blue around the eye, like almost like a little mask. And I guess I'm ready for that. Sometimes I wait pretty long on things like eyes, just because the more patience I use with those, the more information I'll have contextually to get them right. And like I said,
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just saying that right now you're just like you said that you sometimes like to put notes on the painting before you really get to work on the painting.
Well, these are notes. So these are highlight values here, a little bit here. These are lesser highlights. These are little sheen notes on the ear. This is turning shadow right here. This is a little reflected light, which really I just left behind by keeping the paint thin. And then there's this rich red transition value that's really maybe a little bit of bonus compared to the 5 values. Is that really expressive mid-tone note on this dog. And go ahead.
Are you gonna keep reflected light in cool colors too, or is it gonna be warm?
No, there's a warmth to the reflected light that I'm gonna keep.
Okay.
So I really like what Soroya does with warm and cool. Every time you switch value, also switch the color. Also switch the color temperature. So if you are going like cool highlight, then go warm midtone, and then cool turning shadow, then warm reflected light, then cool cast shadow, right? So if you do that every time, it really describes three-dimensional form. So it kind of pushes it a little bit, and sometimes you can make it up. A lot of times you'll just see it. It's not going to be completely invented. So here's what I was talking about with that overly saturated midtone. It looked really dark at first, but I'm going even darker for some of these little transition values, and it pushes the value range so that your shadows are very dark and your midtones are dark enough that you don't have to use pure white to go any brighter. Like if the midtone is keyed in very bright, a lot of times the painting will look washed out because you have to use so many brightening agents that are usually pretty dull to make it bright. So I really like a nice dark middle tone, even if I have to brighten it up later, because it just sets the foundation for a painting that's going to be pretty dynamic. So you'll see that as I'm getting smaller and smaller shapes, this is going to start to get more form, but it's still a little blocky right now. This is very comfortable for me. It's just, again, it's a stage in the process that gets me just notes that I can keep adding smaller shapes if they're looking good, and it suggests corrections when it's still really easy to fix at this early stage. And so again, the blockier and the simpler I can keep these, the more abstract I can keep it, the more efficient I can paint with Alla Prima especially, but I can also make it my own because I'll see little suggestions to do that I might not have thought about in the very beginning. And so I don't really even like to blend, even though this is really disjointed right now, because really the formula for that is just simply that there are going to be jumps in value. I'll find the small specific shape that bridges the gap between one form and another. And so again, I'm just really comfortable with a very blocky stage of the painting. So the cheek I want to keep pretty simple. There's little drawing shapes in here that I think are rather nice. And again, if I didn't go really dark with my middle tone, I probably wouldn't have gone this dark with my shadow. But I think it's a really good thing to have a nice dark shadow. And so all these reflected lights can read as very bright because the shadow is really dark. The middle tone, arguably pretty dark in the beginning, is going to seem pretty bright and vibrant because the shadow is so dark. These highlight values didn't have to be screaming bright white simply because the middle tone is so dark. And so it's just, again, if I'm going to err one way or the other, it's going to be too dark on the middle tone and in the shadows as two just big simple values. And then I can just bridge gaps from there, smaller and smaller until this thing comes together. And so I like to bounce around a lot too. You're probably seeing that now, in that don't really dwell on any one area for too long, because in the abstract phase, all this is pretty important. It's not like I have to say, well, the eyes have to be perfectly developed before I develop the nose, and then I have to develop the ears, and then I have to develop, because really in this approach, everything is going to hopefully be harmonious because I'm considering everything simultaneously. And if it doesn't, again, it's just really easy to adjust at this phase. I'm not wed to anything. I don't have my ego attached to a perfect eye to where if I'm going to make the choice to move that eye, well, I'll be pretty disappointed. Or if I have to make the decision to change the entire painting to suit that eye, that's super inefficient. And for Alla Prima, that's a big deal. And for leaving an egregious mistake, I think that's the worst thing you can do. So I like these big blocky shapes that I can really move around quite easily without being too disappointed. But the other bonus is that you might even find that the blockiness works. So like you might vignette out from bringing this sort of eyes to nose triangle together. And then if it turns into blocky brushstrokes and it works, call it done, sign it, call it expressive, right? So you can kind of create the painting that you want, but not because you had this genius foresight that you knew exactly what it was going to look like at the end product. I mean, I have a kind of good idea where this is going to end up, but I also like to be surprised by the painting. I like to have the painting have its own voice. And again, just look for little suggestions that I might not have anticipated early on. So hopefully this is starting to come together a little bit. If I drew it out a little bit more, it could be a little bit more accurate. I think the camera angles are looking a little funny to me. So I might have to pull this away from the, I might have to show you my view in a second, but never quite mastered that camera work yet. I'm getting better. Obviously, YouTube really kicked my butt. We got off maybe a little late, 10 minutes or so, just trying to figure out YouTube.
Oh, I checked through your YouTube and I can actually see the live feed.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay, well that's a plus. So that means Zoom didn't steal the camera like it has in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I did check your YouTube channel and I could see the live feed going perfectly fine.
Good.
Ago.
I should check if anybody's on the chat. But again, this wasn't the feed that I promised. I announced that this was going to happen, and then I couldn't get the camera to work. So are you one of the two? Are you still zoomed on?
I'm still on Zoom. I just
oh, I meant YouTube. I mean.
Yeah. When I checked, it was working perfectly.
So I'm just saying, there's two people watching on. Okay, now there's one. There
are two watching.
Yeah, there was two. But I think I had some people that said that they were gonna they were gonna wait for it to start, but I couldn't get that feed to work, so I had to start all over. Oh well, them's the breaks. Okay, so I'm pretty encouraged at this stage of how it's going. I mean, I hope it's enjoyable for you all, but again, these notes that I'm taking, they mean more to me than it would for anybody else, just because I've taken these notes and I know what they represent. And I'm kind of getting a feel for the style that I want by the end product. I think it's a great idea to have that finished painting in your head as you're painting. I just don't like being wed to it. So there are a lot of artists that will do a preliminary sketch and it'll be perfect. And then they'll do some color studies and they'll know exactly where they're going with the colors. And they'll, stick to plan from start to finish. I think that's wonderful. That is just not the way I like to paint. So I'm definitely not here to say what I'm doing is the right way. It's just been a way that I really enjoy the painting process. I enjoy the discovery process. And I've gotten good results from it for Alla Prima, for better or worse.
How much time do you assign to an Alla Prima?
It all depends. You've been there in class when I've done them in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
The typical Alla Prima at the school is that I'll pick up the brush intending to do maybe an hour or two, and I end up doing like a 30-minute painting.
Yeah, because you're teaching and you're going around. Yep.
So. Yeah, and I think I'm going to do all this painting, and I don't. But but like on the Friday nights, like I intend to use most of those 3 hours. The model gets the break, so it's not a solid 3 hours. But some of those are outright ambitious. Like that last one on plexiglass, not only was that a difficult surface to paint on, but that we really only had 2.5 hours, and then you take away all the model breaks. That was a 24 by 30.
Yeah, that was a big one.
But also too is like the paint wouldn't stick to the painting.
So did you use like a sandpaper to make the surface a little rough?
Well, I had a plan. And the plan was that when the model got there, I would do my initial gesture, and then I would sand in between the lines of the gesture. But then the model was like a half hour late.
Oh.
So while I was sitting there twiddling my thumb, apologizing to everybody who was in attendance, I just decided to go ahead and sand it. And that's a little unfortunate too, because the painting effect of that transparent plexiglass is pretty awesome. Like to be able to put all those different cloths behind it and stuff like that. I really love that, but I don't like how hazy the areas where I sanded that don't have the figure are. So
It's barely visible. I did not see any fun spots on it.
yeah, nah, it's pretty minor problem.
It looks great.
That was a really tough painting.
I'm sure it was.
Well,
So did you have anything on the background of the glass when you were painting the model?
no, I had a gray cloth, so that was my ground basically. You know how normally we paint the backgrounds, or we have a nice, where we block it in with paint. But the this time, I didn't do anything with the background. I tried to keep it as transparent and clean as I could. And then, just throughout the painting, I kept putting cloths back there, like a kid in a candy shop.
I saw the picture.
Did you? It's like, what would this do? Whee! What would this do?
I don't remember whose cell phone it was. I think it was Marianne, and she was showing me all the pictures. And there was this one where you were trying to make the cloth bunch up like she was sitting on top of a sofa.
Oh yeah.
That was very clever.
And then Liz and Karen got a photo of me holding the painting up. It looked like the model was sitting on my shoulder. Except it was really glary.
We have to take another one.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. But I made the little video of it. It's on my YouTube channel now.
Okay.
So I included that as the very last picture. But I started the video with little clips of all the little experiments with the background.
Yeah, I love the tablecloth.
Which one? The lace?
Yeah.
Yeah, the lace was cool.
The lace, yeah.
Yeah, I like the lace. I like the some of those floral designs. She got a little lost in those, but it was still pretty neat. The one that didn't work that I was really excited about, I thought it was just going to be the coolest thing, is when we put the flashlight behind it. But it looked awful. It looked so bad. The light just illuminated every area where the paint was weak. And in some areas, that paint was really weak because, again, like the thin areas, the scumble areas, there was nothing to stick to. There was hardly any texture and no absorbency. So they were so thin that everywhere the camera shone on those areas, it looked really bad, like the highlights in really weird areas. But if I did a second sitting on that, I bet, just maybe even from memory, we could hire her back, but maybe even just from memory, I'll pull it together and see what happens, because that could be really neat to put a light behind her and have that like almost glow. I think it'd be neat.
Yeah, I think I missed that one.
Oh, when we tried the light.
The light, yeah, I don't remember that.
It was on one of the breaks. It wasn't near the end. It was kind of in the middle.
Okay.
Well, for the show, we had the lace behind it, and it was looking very pretty.
That was the first show that I've missed in probably 20 years.
I know.
Wait, no. I started classes in 2001. So 22 years. I hadn't missed a show.
Well, we missed you.
Well,
Yeah.
missed you too. That
And
was.
it was kind of not to have half of our people.
What's that?
I said it was kind of weird not to have half of the people there.
Yeah, well,
A
COVID
lot of people
strikes.
were asking about you. A lot of people were missing you. And there were so many people who were admiring all the paintings you had done.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah.
Well, we also had those warnings of like monsoon, and it was barely raining. I mean, what were they? I don't know. Maybe the.
We did get a lot of people on Sunday too. It was busy.
Oh, because Andy was saying that it wasn't very busy on Sunday.
I mean, where we take classes, there were a lot of people still coming in.
Great. Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe even just blasting out the show digitally one last time. But the only thing that I hesitated on is, for one, time, and for two, that I don't know if I need to get permission from people. Because, I mean, are people already obligating those paintings to other things? I can definitely market mine. And if either of you want to, and Lu Jing, I don't know if you submitted online. If any of you wanted me to put that as part of an advertisement.
Yeah,
no, I did not even know that there was an online submission.
Oh, really? Oh, I did not do my job.
Tell me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, that show could have been a disaster. I have to sing praises for all you students that stepped up, because it was really nerve-wracking that my mother and I usually do the lion's share of the work for almost all of it. And
yeah, we were nervous, but I think a lot of credit goes to Liz and Nancy and Nana and Genesis, Diana for
so
big part of the show.
the one thing that did go wrong is some people tried to park in that little lot and got tickets. So I gave away a drawing, and this is kind of tragic because of so it was a client that comes by many shows, and has bought a bunch of work over the years and stuff, and we definitely don't like alienating students, but she parked in that lot and got a ticket. So I decided, it's like, you know what, I'm gonna give her a drawing, because she's collected some of my figure drawings. I'm gonna give her a drawing. And then, so I see her, I give her the drawing. She thanked me profusely, all this stuff, and then said, "Oh yeah, I submitted a claim, and I think they're gonna refund me." It's like, great. Just gave you a drawing. For what? But I don't know. Still, well, it's okay. Oh well. Okay, so I'm at a stage where I need to decide whether I want to bring any of this together or just simply keep adding brushstrokes. So a lot of these values here are a little disjointed, and one way to solve it is to simply just find that little value. I see it as a gray, and it breaks up this little canal, and that brings the gap together. Like, this is a big jump of value here. I can add that next little value to bring it together. Alternatively, I could take out a big blending brush, smash it all together, and then put brush strokes on top, because I really don't like the look of blending. There's some artists that do it really well and it looks beautiful, but I just don't like that in my paintings. I like that sort of force of paint. And that was the wrong value. The blending can bring it together, but then I put a body of paint on top of it, usually with pretty bold brush strokes and impasto. So I'm going to spend some time on those eyes soon. You can see I just I refined this a little, and then this ended up being too low because that ended up shrinking. But this was the right one, and this needed to be adjusted. So I brought that up, and then I just bounced around to another area. I'm going to get back to it. I am going to bring that to a focal point pretty soon, actually. But I want the whole painting to be harmonized first, and that's where, you know, I might differ for some other people, and it's never going to be. You probably won't ever hear me say right or wrong, especially when the results get in there with a bit of efficiency. Efficiency is a big deal for me, but I do enjoy those artists that really take their time and get everything measured and perfect, and you know, I just like the discovery process. So my big part of my painting process is abstraction and breaking it down into 5 values of light, and then I can make a lot of creative decisions from there. So I don't always know exactly where I'm going to go with the painting. I'm going to take a break real soon to get more paint on my palette because I'm really doing almost single brush strokes, which is where the brush holds the most paint. And so there's quite a lot of paint on here. But it won't take long. I had to choose between portrait and animal, and I had a different animal in mind. This is just, I spent too long trying to find that image I called out earlier. And I was just like, yep, I'm going to do this one. I'm going to get started. And now you hear the inner process of scramble from getting Ollie to sleep to setting up and painting. Ollie's really cute in the bedtime process, but he just drags on and on and on. He fights to sleep by being a bit of a clown, and it's hilarious. And you don't want it to stop really, but it has to, or else he's going to be a nightmare tomorrow. You know, he has to wake up for school and everything, and he needs to sleep. But I also needed my time to paint, and it's just like, Ollie, stop! You've got to sleep. You know, you say that for the 20th time. It's like, come on.
Does he still have his tooth?
He does. It's hanging on by a thread, and he won't let me pull it. I mean, I could just do it, but I don't know. I don't think I really need to. The only thing I'm worried about with that tooth is that it's so loose that he might swallow it. But if I pulled it out, it might hurt him for a bit. He might get mad at me and whatever. That's okay. I'm not opposed to doing the right thing if it hurts him, whatever. But I don't know. This one didn't seem that important.
Does he have a remote control car? You can tie the tooth with a thread to the remote control car and give him the phone.
Now you're thinking. Is that how you got your kids' teeth out?
Well, they were always very impatient too because they strongly believed in the tooth fairy. And yeah, so that was the incentive to get the tooth out as quickly as possible.
I don't know. Hans lost a tooth not too long ago, and I kept egging him on, like, you know, I told him I texted the tooth fairy, and I put on this whole routine. It's like I show him the text, it'll say like, "Hey, TF, Hans is gonna lose a tooth," and he gets excited about that. But this last time he lost the tooth, and then I was just like, have you checked the bed? He's like, "No, I don't think she came." It's like, well, have you checked? And it's like, well, I mean, I have no idea. Of course I knew it was in there the whole time. So it went like 3 days of him having this little note and some money under his pillow, just because he wouldn't believe me that he should check the under the bed. And it was just like, what are you doing? Oh well, you never know, I guess. All right, so I'm gonna retool my brush. This is what it looks like without
So
some
cute.
some of the
Yeah.
distortion.
It's really cute.
But it's got a lot of potential. It's just got a lot of fragmented notes of color and value. I can see some that I'm going to adjust, like right through here on the bridge of the nose, of course. And then I'm going to hone in the eye. I'm going to bring together these wrinkles just a little bit. And then I'm going to step back. I'm going to just see what the painting needs. I think it's pretty likely that I'll need more in the body, but how much more is going to depend on what level of finish this gets to. And I'm going to leave the potential for choppy brushstrokes, and I'll undo it if I have to. So it's all of this is going to depend on this triangle, which a lot of artists would already have honed in by now. I just, I go pretty slow when it comes to getting into detail. I like the big shapes. I like that abstract blocking. I like to keep working these intermediary shapes until they suggest the right form and value. And then it's time to really bring it together. I definitely don't want to do the eyes just because I'm impatient to do the eyes. I think that's a bad reason to do it. But if it really helps you in your painting process to have a detailed eye and then work your way out, so be it. It would be a little different than the way I do it, but I want everyone to paint the way they paint. I don't really try to force people to paint like me, or suggest that it's the right way versus somebody's wrong way. That's not true either. I keep saying I'm going to retool my brush. This just looks like I'm a liar. Oh, that was way too dark. Yeah, I'm out of a lot of paints. And the right thing to do is to stop and retool my palette.
So once you are putting are you gonna work on the wrinkles later once the paints set a little?
I don't have to worry about settling because I have texture.
Okay.
The canvas weave has enough to grab the paint and the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. I mean, if all this were like palette knife globbed on paint and I wanted some precision, then yeah, maybe. But the reason that I had to wait on the plexiglass is because it had nothing to grab paint.
Right.
And the reason that I had to do that for some of those paintings on metal was because of the same issue. It's just no absorbency, nothing's grabbing. And when the paint gets a little sticky, then you can get that next tier of detail without just really globbing on the paint. And again, I'm not opposed to globbing on paint. It's just if there's a lot of other things to block in, there's really no rush. So like on that painting of the holly, that was super slick. And the strategy was to do just really big flat values and just leave them there for a while and just keep bouncing around the composition. And I had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, when the paint settled up, then I could start getting more specific with those leaves and the berries and stuff like that. It just took a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, total liar that I was going to retool the paint. Although,
So when you paint on canvas, do you prefer to put more than usual medium on the surface?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, because I want those drawing lines to flow. It's a pain to draw on a dry surface. I mean, it's not impossible. I've done it plenty of times. It's just a lot less enjoyable than being able to drag a line on this surface. If I didn't have a lot of grease down, if I'd have made a line, it would run out of juice by like here, like 2 inches, then it would have been gone. And then
Yes,
the temp.
That's been my experience with canvas, that it just soaks up all the paint.
Well, especially if it's acrylic gesso. Like if if you do it the way that I teach you how to prime canvas, then the oil ground that we put down is a lot less absorbent. So you're not simultaneously fighting texture and absorbency at the same time. And that's a lot easier to paint on.
Right.
But the acrylic gesso plus canvas is usually pretty absorbent and textured. And then it depends on the gesso. Some are more slick than others. But some are so absorbent on top of that texture, it's just like you're going to be fighting it the whole time. We did one of the challenges on Friday night with one of those canvas papers. Oh my gosh, you could almost hear that paint getting soaked into that super dry paper. And it just took gobs and gobs of medium and solvent to just get a body of paint down. Because
I remember that one on Instagram.
Oh, I didn't know if you were there that day. It's hard to keep track of.
I was watching the Instagram live video of it, and I remember that you mentioned that the paper kept on absorbing all the paint very quickly.
It was crazy. Because we came up with the challenge because Genesis bought a whole pad of this stuff, and I looked at his painting at the end of the session. I was like, wow, that's absorbent. I could see it from across the room. Like everything turned like super matte. And he said, yeah, it was a battle the whole time. And so I was like, okay, can I have a sheet for next week? It was tough. It just ate so much paint. As opposed to plexiglass, which ate none of it, and painting on metal, which ate none of it. Because I had a challenge very similar to that over the summer with Monica. Remember that model Monica? She the challenge was supposed to be that I was going to leave all this raw copper coming through in a lot of like the reflected lights and into the background and things like that. But the challenge became that it was just super slick because I'd forgotten to sand it. And it was just an oil slick for 3/4 of the painting. And then I could finally get some refined brushwork down because it could finally start taking the paint.
So did you paint the stork, which is on the aluminum surface, after you painted Monica?
Are you talking about the cormorant? Yeah.
Because that was also looking really beautiful in the show.
Thank you. Yeah, the first time it was in the show, I believe it was the animal show. It wasn't in a place that the light shifted too much, so it was a little bit of disappointment. But I don't complain about my placement in the show. For one, I have way more work than anybody else, and for two, I don't want to be a part of the hanging, so I also don't want to complain. There's like, I don't know. For me, it's like how many years of getting fussed at by by David and my mother. Like, you're trying to help and you put something on the wall and you instantly get screamed at for not placing it right. And so it wasn't like I'm avoiding getting screamed at. It was just I'm avoiding the temptation to rage back at them because they're being totally ridiculous. And I don't want that drama anymore. It's just not fun. So I don't get involved with the hangings because I don't know. It's always been more fuss than anything. That's another first. I mean, David not hanging the show.
Yeah.
Or not being involved at all. Sometimes he'll do a little bit or take over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this time.
Hey, Jill's back.
Cool. David, no Karen.
Welcome back, Jill.
And no Francesco, and so It was weird.
It sure looked good though.
It did.
It did.
I
It was
like
a miracle
a miracle.
that everything came together.
A Christmas miracle. All right, so now I'm starting to get a game plan as to where I want the style to go. Again, I had an idea, but I always like to let the painting speak to me. I kind of like the way the brushstroke is pretty heavy. So I think the strategy is going to be I'm going to work the eyes and then really lay down some impasto in here. And we'll just see how much modeling I do in those wrinkles and things like that, because they could be supported as a looseness. Right now, they're just too heavy. But they don't have to be refined much, I don't think. So I might just dissolve out from here being thick paint and a little bit of detail for the eye, and then very little anywhere else. We'll see. Probably change my mind again, but I like the choppiness of the brushstroke when you get out, you know, a little bit outside of that eye to nose triangle. Okay. More paint. Gotta do it. One more thing. I'm like on fumes now. I hardly have any paint left. I normally put out a lot of paint. I guess it was just kind of in a rush because I hadn't set up the cameras yet, and then I had a lot of trouble with YouTube again.
You know, I was watching the Proco channel the other day, and they were having all sorts of technical problems too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they admitted it. They said every time they always have lots of issues.
Well, I would have thought he'd have it figured out by now. He's been at it for a long time. Well,
Maybe
that's a little
one, I don't know.
That's encouraging. I like his.
No, I think it was a current thing that they were doing.
I like his challenge. I like his channel a lot. I don't tune in as much as I should, but just for time. But I enjoy everything I've seen there. Okay, so all my patchwork is in place, except that dark shoulder. It needs to be darker, but whoop. Yeah, definitely stopping for paint.
Okay.
I've said it enough to finally listen to myself. And what way do I turn it to make it less distorted? This way?
That looks good right there. That looks really nice.
Yeah, she's so cute.
Yeah, so I'm yet to refine the eyes. I'm yet to refine the nose too much, but I like the nose. So that's part of the decision of saying that maybe I want to dissolve it out from the eyes, but it definitely needs more in the ears and in the forehead. This patchwork in here might need a little blending, maybe. I don't know. I really don't like blending, but I could just put more brushwork in there. I just don't want to refine it really.
I like it the way it is right now. It looks beautiful.
Thanks. I do want to introduce a few more cools into there. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Where are we time-wise? Wow. Jeez, it's even less than 2 hours. I thought it'd be later. Here I've been yammering the whole time. So you guys make the time go a lot slower.
Really? Instead of faster?
Well, when it's just me versus the painting, it's, I don't know. I'll look at the clock and all of a sudden it'll be like 3 in the morning. I don't think it's like I don't mean to say anything like boredom or anything. I mean to say more like entertainment. I've got something to anchor it down rather than going into like hyper focus where again I don't know when it'll happen, but it'll instantly go from like 11 to 3 in the morning. And then I'm super tired the next day. Time blindness. It's been a problem my whole life. All right, so again, I'm not going to refine all this yet. I'm going to get into the eyes and then build my way out and just see where I end up. I might even go brighter with the background. We'll see.
What are you going to do to the eyes?
Well, I'm going to get them that glassiness. I'm going to get them that sort of droopy expression. I'm going to refine these dark reds to be a little bit more nuanced. I'm going to get this little outline of the, dog's eyes are quite outlined with dark. You hardly ever see the sclera too much unless it's like a bloodhound or something. And I'm going to get my richest dark. This is going to be my darkest dark. It's going to make that refracted light really pop. And I'm probably going to go even bolder with the refracted light. It's okay that it's going to go through this little clunky period right here, because I'm just getting a little bit more specific with the shapes. But what I really want is that amber glow passing through the eye and a nice dark base for a sparkly highlight and accent dark. I want this to be so rich that it's really the place the viewer is enticed to go to.
Is this like a transparent glaze you're putting?
No, nothing transparent anymore. I put in a pretty heavy dark there. If ideally you would get some of those rich darks pretty transparent, but Alla Prima kind of has that, I don't know, that feeling of immediacy. Like I'm gonna get as much done as I can in one sitting. So if the painting gets a little heavier, the big deal isn't necessarily that all your shadows are super thin. It's just that they're thinner than your lights, for that feeling of kind of smokiness and depth and the penetration of layers in the paint. You see it in some of Will Wilson's demos too. I'm not comparing myself to him. He's spectacular, but I'm just saying, like, some of those demos we have of his, they go from super thick to super duper thick, and it still has that same nice effect of the lights feeling. Hold on for a second. I hear my kids. Just a second.
Okay.
What's up, buddy? What's up? What's going on?
That puppy has a really cute face.
I I know, she's so cute. It's almost like she's begging for food. That's how my dog, I mean, that's the look, exactly the look my dog gives me if I'm, eating a snack and you want some of it. Yeah, I recognize that look.
It kind of looks like she's very compassionate.
Yeah, he did an amazing job with that. So my left, the left eye, you can start seeing the softness in her eye.
Yeah. I don't know how he does that.
He did it so fast though.
Yeah. I've been doing, my dogs, and it's been hard.
I love his dog too. And congratulations on selling it.
Oh, the dog?
Yeah, Goldie.
Yeah, Goldie.
That's good. Have you decided on the scratch board animal list? Like,
Yes, I think I'm going to do a raccoon.
that's cool. Are you going to use the technique that you and Hans were talking about? You guys were talking about that you will experiment with something.
Yeah, what are we experimenting with?
I don't know, but
yeah, we're going to do that. I can't remember what it was though.
Okay.
Oh, yes, I do. It had to do with it's at the tip of my tongue.
So is it a raccoon that you're doing?
I'm doing a raccoon, yeah.
That's gonna be cool. I think it's gonna look good on a scratch board because it's got these dark stripes.
Oh, I know what it was. It was a raccoon with gold leaf.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Are you using it in the background?
It's gonna be like a backlighting thing, and I don't know how it's gonna work out, but we'll see.
I think that's a cool experiment.
Yeah, are you going to try the gold leaf?
Yeah, I will probably try and use that on a painting.
Okay, because I have tons of it. So, you could just use some of mine. I have a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I just come up with an idea of how to use it.
Yeah, I think one of the best ways is to use it like for water, like a reflection.
Okay.
But there are two different ways to apply it. You can either apply it to the board completely in the beginning, or you can do it after you painted. You can add it with mastic varnish.
Okay.
So you can add it where you want it. And I haven't tried that yet, but I think I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure which way.
So I know that you were using it in one of your paintings, and the background was done entirely of gold leaf, right? Painting?
Yeah, that it's not finished yet, but yes.
So are you painting on top of the gold leaf, or you
I've been leaving some of it exposed, but I have been painting on top of it. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That was Ollie. He's kind of screaming in pain. Excuse me.
You all right?
Yeah. I was just trying to talk before I was ready. I just gave him some ibuprofen. I'm just gonna sit with him for just a second, and he'll fall right back asleep. I don't know how long it'll be, and I'm sorry about that. So if you want to stick with me, that's good. If not, I totally understand. But I'll be right back.
Okay. All right. Good luck with it.
Yeah.
Maybe his tooth will fall out.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if it's his tooth that was bothering him.
Yeah. He's so cute.
Yeah.
He's just a little boy.
I know.
Yeah, so with this gold leaf, the way that I applied it to the whole board, but after I did that, then I sealed it with, that spray that you use for charcoal.
Oh, okay.
The fixative. Yeah, it's a fixative. So that seals it in kind of so it's not going to shift. And I think it also allows you to paint on it freely.
Oh, that's interesting. I always thought if you put fixative on top, then your paint won't stick to the surface, but this is...
No, it definitely will. It's and it makes it so that you can paint on it easily.
Okay.
So if you use the mastic varnish to add the gold leaf, I'm not sure you can paint on top of that.
Yeah.
But maybe. And Hans tried using charcoal, like a charcoal pencil on top of the one that I did that's completely gold.
Yeah.
And it took it pretty well. It was really easy to do that. So, I think I'm going to be able to do everything with it.
Okay, that's so cool.
Yeah, I'm going to try it. And just maybe try even with the mastic varnish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. But the raccoon is really, really cute.
Yeah, I didn't see a picture of the raccoon. I know that you were trying to decide on one.
Yeah, I finally decided on one, and I did a preliminary drawing.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'm still working on my preliminary drawing. But, Hans said that it's okay if it's not true to the drawing, like true to the print from which you're drawing. And so I think that kind of helps me worry less about my drawing, because I was comparing it to the picture that I was copying it from, and it's not looking exactly like that chimpanzee, but it does look like a monkey.
Oh, good. Yeah. I was just going to ask you what you were doing, and now I remember. You said you were going to do that. Yeah, that's going to be good. We should talk to Francesca about going on a field trip to see that man's sculpture farm.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be awesome. And I think Kyle was telling me that he has also talked to him, because I think Kyle wants to I think he wants to meet him and find out more about his process.
Right.
So yeah, that would be cool if you can all just go and look at his property. I'm sure he would love to, show all his work. It's wonderful from what I've heard of. I think you were right. Was it Carl Hobbs who was talking about it?
No, it was Jeff. Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, seems like a great place. And Carl showed me some of his pictures from Google Images, and he has done some really cool work.
Yeah, the thing is that he's done it life size.
Yeah.
So they're really spectacular.
Something. And to have a foundry on your property, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I know, it's really cool.
Because from what I knew was that there are no such, there are no foundries anymore. Because I was wondering about a bronze sculpture, and I remember Francesca saying that there used to be one in Baltimore, but then it closed. But this artist has his own foundry.
Yeah, I think that's really good. He's in Pennsylvania, right?
I think he's in Westminster.
Oh, in Westminster. Okay, that's not far.
Yeah, that's not.
I mean, not really. Yeah. That sounds good.
It does.
So, your Tina Turner got a lot of attention.
Yeah.
Yeah. People liked her.
That's cool. I'm glad that they liked her. I was worried about because I put so much gold on her. But you know what? She was a superstar, and she was a singer, and I just wanted her all sparkly, and so that's how I made her. And if people were like, "No, I like it. I like that you did that."
So yeah, I'm really happy, and I love her earrings.
Yeah. So at first, I decided to just keep the earrings gold as her skin, but then they weren't really that wasn't really working out, and so I just decided to paint them silver.
Yeah, that worked out. That really made the contrast.
Yeah, I had fun doing Tina Turner. This was a fun project.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good choice.
Yeah,
I thought, yeah, it was a really good choice.
yeah. Thank you.
And Kyle said he was going to do Tony Bennett, but I never saw Tony Bennett. Did you?
No, I did not see Tony Bennett. And then you know what? He was painting that cast, the hand cast,
Oh yeah.
and it was beautiful. And I really wanted him to put that in the show, but I didn't see it, so I don't know.
Yeah, I asked him about that too, and he didn't do it, but it was so nicely done.
Yeah, it was really nicely done, and I'm amazed at how much he's improved in his painting. It just took him a year to get so good at painting, and that's one of the most complicated casts. Like I tried to do a drawing of it, and it was not easy. And
I did too, and mine was terrible.
yeah, hands are tough. Hands are tough to do, and he did a pretty good job with it. And I remember Nancy telling that casts, drawings of casts and paintings of casts, they tend to sell because they look good any uh, in any room, and they tend to sell. But so that's what I was trying to tell him, that if you put it, there's a chance that it might sell. But he just wasn't ready to put it in the show. So
Yeah, I know.
well, there's always next year and the summer show.
True. Well, Francesca said she's going to try to do a Valentine's Day show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to go on for that one.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of figures maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, is it going to be a teen show, like a Valentine theme, or is it just going to be an art show?
I don't know. I don't know what she just said Valentine's Day.
Okay.
So I guess anything Valentine's Day themed. I don't. So it would happen before the animal show.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Probably, flowers go with the theme.
Oh yeah, that's true. A beautiful bouquet.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Fritz today, and he said to tell everybody hi.
Oh, how's he doing?
He's doing great. I mean, he's not walking or anything, but he's.
I'm glad that he's adjusted well to his new place. And
He really has.
He's not feeling too homesick. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, once in a while he gets homesick, but he was glad he missed all the COVID.
Yeah. Oh.
He was all happy about that. And he had a lady visit him today, and he had a lady visit him today. Her name was Pam. I think it was somebody that he was very friendly with when he was younger. Okay. But anyway, when she came in, he was ready for me to leave. He wanted to be alone with her. I said, "Well, I have to go." So that was funny.
Yeah. Well, I miss Prince and all his things.
I don't think he even said goodbye to me. He really wanted me out of there.
Yep, that's Prince.
Yeah, it was funny.
It's funny.
But
yeah, I know when he gets excited about something, and then everything around him kind of disappears, and he zones in on that one thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, he wanted me to stay and meet her.
Uh-huh.
And I had met her because I think she came to the show. But once we said our hellos, it was like I wasn't even in the room. It was
I
funny.
was wondering if he was gonna get more visitors after the show because a lot of people on the show were asking about him and they didn't know that he was at Keswick.
Yeah, he must have because I think he's had over 70 visitors or something. He's keeping track for some reason of the numbers.
I think I should get him a guest book for Christmas.
Oh, I love that idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll get him a guest book and everybody can sign something for him.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that idea. But you know how, at home there are like the Kleenexes and stuff on the floor and all that?
Yeah.
It's like that over there now.
I mean, doesn't he have like a room service or something?
Well, he does, but
Yeah, well,
still, just during a visit, it's just, it gets like that. He's got papers everywhere. It's funny.
is he painting?
No, he's not painting. But, well, maybe he is. I think he wants to.
Maybe, I mean, like more, because watercolor painting, you still have to, spread it out and you need a lot of surface area, probably drawing or something like that.
Yeah, I think that Nancy suggested that he have a class there for us.
Mm-hmm.
Like that we could all come to the place and he would teach us.
I would love that.
Yeah, and he's very interested in that. So maybe we'll do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea because that way we can visit him and there are no awkward silences or anything.
Right. But he's not really anxious to have the residents join our class.
Oh, okay. He just wants to stick to this usual crowd.
Right. That's really what he wants.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
I think it's also because we know how we all know what Fritz's process is, and so we won't be pelting him with too many questions. Anyone new will be asking him too many questions, and he probably won't be able to get into the zone as you like.
I think you hit it right on the. Yeah, I think that's correct.
Because he is fast. He really works fast, but you're used to him being fast, and
yeah,
you know how that thing works.
Yeah, but he looks good. The people there, the staff, they really love him. And when he gets good food, he sends a note to the kitchen.
Oh, that's sweet.
They're letting them know how much he loved it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah, and so they love him, and they probably don't get a lot of thanks, so
I'm
they
sure.
love that he thanks them for the food because that's his focus.
So, what's his favorite food over there?
He said that he likes the chicken, and sometimes he said they gave him liver and onions the other day.
Oh gosh!
And he hated that. He said he couldn't even look at it.
Yeah, I can totally understand that.
And I said, "Oh, yum!" I said, "That is delicious." Like, no, I couldn't even look at it.
Yeah, does he miss his chicken salad sandwiches and the sour cream onion chips and Diet Coke?
I think people bring him those things. Like the chips. He usually has a little bit of a supply there.
Okay.
And
is he allowed to have that diet? I mean, is he allowed to have those chips?
Yeah, he is. He's allowed to have anything he wants.
Okay, that's cool.
And he's careful. He's not. Not.
He was always careful about the portion size and everything.
He's not overindulging, but he does like to have it.
But I have to tell you, Liz, I never used to like chicken salad sandwiches, but after sitting with Fritz every day for lunch, I started loving them, and my husband was surprised because my husband loves chicken salad sandwiches, and so I would always tell him that, I don't know, I don't find any flavor in them, but he was surprised to see me making a chicken salad sandwich one day for lunch. He said, "What brought that on?" And I told him, I said, "It's because of my watercolor teacher." And then same thing with sour cream and onion. The Utz sour cream and onion, they are so good.
I haven't tried them yet.
Well, I mean, if you try, it's surprisingly, Utz does a really good job with the sour cream and onion flavor. Nobody, the Lay's sour cream and onion flavor, I personally found it a little too strong. but I like the Utz one. And then so yeah, I started bringing Utz sour cream and onion chips with my groceries now, and it's because of Fritz.
Oh my goodness, that's funny.
He used to enjoy it so much during the lunch that I just
Well, I know.
yeah.
And even if if he was getting low, he wouldn't let you have any.
No.
He's like, nope, those are mine.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that there was a bag almost finished. I think there were only a few crumbs left, and you know how Karen loves chips, and she was just picking on the crumbs, and she was feeling like she was being kind of sneaky, but it was almost done. But he also started liking the popcorns I'd bring.
Oh yeah, the popcorn he loved all the snacks you brought. Yeah, he would really go through those.
Yeah, the granola bites. He liked the chocolate chip ones.
Yeah.
Ask for those when he'd come up into the studio.
He asked me to get him some Christmas cookies.
Oh, he's missing those. Did they decorate his room for any Christmas?
Okay.
There's nothing like that yet, but he has like a poster on his door for being a veteran.
Oh, cool.
Hey,
Welcome back, Thomas.
Yay!
Yeah, sorry about that. He was he's going through growth spurt, I guess. He had a lot of leg pains.
Oh yeah.
So he was kind of freaked out about it too. So like he wanted me to stay there while he fell asleep. But like I tried to leave like 3 times, and his like that little eye would pop open, and then I don't know. Anyway, I could have just said like, look, I really need to go downstairs, but
oh, that's okay.
Yeah, he was really freaked out about it. He was in a lot of pain. So ibuprofen finally kicked in. Finally escaped.
Well, it's nice to be able to be there for your kids.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
That's a great privilege.
Well, you got a good break out of it, Hans.
Yeah, I usually don't take breaks. I need to. It's great for the painting to take breaks.
Yeah.
It's just demo, you try to get as much done as you can in a short amount of time.
Well, I think everybody waited patiently.
I'm impressed.
I know. It's great.
Like my Friday night sessions, I lose a lot of people every time that internet signal cuts out. But yeah, that was important. He needed me.
Yep.
He goes through massive leg pains. I didn't remember that with Hans. Ollie's leg pains are like he'll wake up really upset. And it hasn't quite slowed down yet. He's only, 5. Hans's growth spurts are a little more separate, but I don't know. Every once in a while, Ollie's legs start hurting him so bad that he just wakes up screaming. I'm here in the basement with this space heater blasting away. For me to hear him from here means something's up.
Yeah. Oh.
Especially concentrating. It's like, is that one of the kids?
Yeah, it's amazing how we can always pick our kids.
Yeah. Yeah, very true.
Like even if you'd be at someone's house and there would be a lot more other kids, I could always tell that's my kid crying of the other boys.
No, I know what you mean, but it's you could pick them out of a crowd too. I mean, it's just I don't know, even if you didn't expect him to be there, it's like, wait a minute, is that Hans? I don't know. Yeah, I guess that's a good instinct.
Yep, it is.
But yeah, he got the ibuprofen, and it just took a little while for it to kick in, and then I don't know, I guess he wanted me to stay with him so bad that it was like he just slept with one eye open. But he was breathing heavy and everything. It's like I was like, oh, I got it this time. And then I'd get out the door, and it's just like, Daddy, like, darn it, got me again. Oh well. Yeah, I think it's been happening a lot late. Like not the growth pains, but I think that's probably behind him being so restless at night, not letting me, not getting him down to sleep very easily. It's not like Hans where I can just say, go to sleep, kid, and then just walk away. But for Ollie, it's a lot more involved. But I guess it probably has something to do with this whatever growth spurt he's going through. It means I'm gonna have to replace all his clothes.
Right.
At least with him, a lot of his clothes just get, he gets the hand-me-downs from his brother.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They're so expensive. I mean, their clothes are so expensive, and then they grow out so fast. I don't know. So
I feel like they've skyrocketed lately.
they have.
Like I was looking at just like some simple like sweatpants, and they're like $17. It's like he's gonna wear this for like a month.
I know. I'm actually going through the same issue with my son because he's also growing, and I just got him some new pants 2 months ago, and he's already grown out of them. So I was just kind of laughing about it. I'm like, okay.
Right. I mean, what can you do? He's got to wear clothes to fit. But
well, I mean, the good thing is it's winter nowadays. I said, oh, you can wear your boots.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, Ollie was complaining about his shoes the other day, so I guess this must be a massive growth spurt this time.
What size clothes does he wear?
He's wearing size 5 and 6 right now for boys.
Right.
And then his shoes, I want to say he's size 2 boys, but I don't know. I better check on that.
What about Hans?
Hans is still wearing size 8, so they're about the right age group.
Oh, is that the way it works for kids?
Typically, I mean, I think that's what they're supposed to be, but some kids grow faster, some slower, some bigger, some taller, some shorter. So it's always a give or take, but yeah, I think it's supposed to correlate with their age.
Yeah, it's supposed to correlate with their age, but yeah, some kids are always wearing 2 sizes bigger than their own age group, and it's just different for different kids.
Well, that's how they were early on. They were much above that number, but now they're about what that number says. It's always give or take. It's like they're going to go through a growth spurt, then they might be in the higher number for a little while, and then it'll just catch back up. But they're yeah, I mean, I guess they're average sized kids. They're not particularly tall or small, All right, so I'm getting some of these more expressive features of the eye. We'll really work that eyebrow and surrounding areas. still jumping around, but I'm only jumping in small areas now instead of just kind of globally. And like I said, just how far I take detail, I just want to be careful to stop at a part that works. I don't want to just keep blasting away mindlessly and then refining something that doesn't need to be refined. Not the end of the world, of course, but you might. I've found that sometimes I lose out on areas that really looked kind of cool in their rougher stage, and then they just kind of lost something when they got to that like refinement and detail. On Alla Prima, you don't have that sort of luxury of really analyzing things and stopping and taking big break. Well, I just took a big break, but not the break I anticipated.
Oh, you got one.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks to Ollie.
Yep.
Yeah. Poor boy got a.
He helped.
That's right. Nah, he was really upset. So, but it was nice. I told him, it's like, look, I'm gonna go downstairs. I just have to tell some people what's going on, and then I'll come right back. And yeah, he was cool with that. He took that well. But I thought I was out of that room like 3 times. So I really like this wrinkled forehead too. I'm gonna spend some time on that too, but I'm not quite done with this eye. Getting some of the edges a little bit closer. And again, I just feel like when I get that first impression again, that everything's just a little too warm. So I just want to push some of those cools just a little bit more. And then again, it gets to that law of diminishing returns, to where it could be a finished painting. If I keep adding one more thing, I'm going to get less out of each new thing. It's going to contribute less to the overall product. And so some people want to take that very far. That's their thing. Some people want to stop. And I just think there's a point where you can just say, okay, this has gone far enough. It works, and I'm done.
Are you still using the picture as a reference, or at this point you're
I am. I'm just not wed to it.
okay.
I'm looking for little ways of breaking up things like this brow is too solid. It's one color, which is perfect for gesture, and I just want it to be a little bit more expressive. So where are the edges? What's the color transition? I already have a scheme for how I'm going to transition from light to shadow, but again, just take a quick look and just see what's going on. But again, I'm not super wed to this, and I'm not going to bring it to like photographic detail. I like all this choppiness that's going on. I think the eye is reading really strong. This eye needs to read stronger, but
that eye is in the shadow.
Yeah, it's going to get a lot less. But what I need to do is make sure that with this skull tilt, yeah, I'm pretty well balanced. I'm just going to give it, again, that just my darkest dark, I want in the pupil and eyebrow line or eyelash line of the upper eyelid. And so I'm going to punch that highlight out. I'm not going to put a highlight in there, so I'm not going to get much of a refracted light. There is an influence of like a blue-gray light. Like I said, there's probably a Windows influence on this, and that's why the ears turn gray. But I don't really need to adhere to that too strongly. So I don't think I'm going to put that in. I'm going to let the eye be really smoky, really subtle. And I'm going to leave that little refracted light right there, but it needs to be supported by a pretty rich dark. And then I need to soften all the eyebrow, because again, with that being focal point, I don't want that choppiness in there. I'm going to leave choppiness probably not in the wrinkles up there, but probably in the chest and the ears. They're going to get dissolved out to make sense to be really choppy and unrefined. And then I'll be telling the viewer that this is the place to look. I mean, that's where they would look anyway, because it's the eyes, but still, if you have too many things competing with the eyes become less special. So even though it's the natural place for people to look, regardless of whether you play it up or play it down, it's still nice to not have everything compete with it.
So Hans, you did something very different from what Fritz always tell, and I know that everyone has their own way of doing things, because Chris would always say, when you're painting an animal, start with the eye.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do that. I mean, I watched a tutorial by Richard Schmidt who said, okay, start your drawing in the eye. I don't like starting with the eye. I feel like if I start with things like the overall structure and the shapes of the shadow, you know, the eye socket is going to be a big part of that estimation of the shapes of the shadow. And then I'll be in a really nice context of shape with the eye socket and its sort of harmony to the whole rest of the head. Color, because, you know, those color block-ins in the abstract simplification stage, they're going to be pretty close at that point. If I, you know, properly take the time to scrutinize it and get it right. And then values, right? So it's not a wild guess at the values either. It's contained in those simple shapes. And I get eyes that I like a lot better when I have that contextual information to get it right. So I bounce around a lot with a lot of abstraction. I try to get a simple version of the entire painting. And then I'll get into really, you know, important specific moments. But the simple version gets in there pretty easily, you know, pretty quickly. You know, that squint level abstract simplification, you know, and I like to play up things like that. You know, in a human eye socket, you get that glow in the inside of the eye socket. I love to play that up, which requires a lot of balancing to the rest of the features, because you don't want reflected light to be as bright as direct light. And so to get that just right, you know, again, I just take a little bit of time to get to the eye. I would definitely never call Fritz wrong. I would never call Richard Schmid wrong. You know,
No.
Way too much respect for what they do. It's just,
I've forgotten why Fritz. What was the reason behind that? That Fritz said that you start with the eye, because
well,
you would always.
you're just building around what's important, I would guess.
Yeah.
And I do that. I just do it a lot later. So again, this is very simple and choppy, and now I'm refining the eyes, and I'm going to work my way out. So my system goes from simple block in, nothing's really important except for the design, geometric shapes, you know, whatever it takes to get balance, like with a center line, things like that. But then I'll do a simplified block in, starting with the focal point, working the secondary pretty fast, because I have really nothing to base that start on. And so I get the primary subject matter in, but super simple, and then secondary based on the primary, and then tertiary, like backgrounds and foregrounds and stuff like that, based on you know, those important elements. It's not to say that the environment is unimportant. It is. It's just, it's a supportive character. And then I'm back to the focal point to refine it. And then, like I said, a lot of times I'll find that, you know, it works on the simple stage, just dissolving from simple to specific. And I don't need to refine some of these things. Sometimes the painting really requires detail everywhere. And it's just like, you know, the painting can have its voice. And, you know, obviously if it's a commission, then the client gets their voice too.
Yeah.
But, you know, I like to keep my eye open for little things that I didn't anticipate. I have a feeling that Fritz doesn't have any of those. I think he can anticipate anything that's going to happen in a painting. So, I mean, you get that kind of experience. I don't know. It looks effortless for him, and I know it's not, because
Yeah, he makes it look so easy, and it's not.
it's
I mean,
definitely.
the way he paints a tree right in front of your eyes, and then how many times I've cried trying to paint this thing. It's so frustrating. It's very deceptive. Like you think it's very easy. It's not. It's just he's that good at it.
He definitely makes it look effortless. But I mean, it's funny though because you'll see him, do the big red X through his painting and throw it out, and you're just like, no, that looks great. Stop it.
I know I've been in some of his classes where he said the big red X, and people were like, you don't have to do that. You can just get it drawn.
Well, this is what I don't understand. Like, he has a very pronounced shake to his hand. And so his hand will shake violently with this tiny little brush in hand, and then somehow put this beautiful, elegant swoop to this tree that tapers from like thick to thin and all these little growing seasons and all these things. He does it perfectly, and then his hand goes right back to shaking. It's like, I just don't get it. I don't know how he can be that precise.
I know.
With that much of a tremor in his hand. What were you saying, Liz?
I agree with you. It's a mystery.
Yeah. I mean, I have kind of steady hands, but I can't make a straight line to save my life. But I say it often that brush precision really isn't my thing, and that's probably behind a lot of my method here. Is that I don't have to be terribly precise early on, and then later when I do need to be precise, I've just got a lot of information to get it right. And so that probably plays right into my weakness of not being able to place the brush exactly where I want it. But we all have our strong suits. Like Andy is phenomenal at mixing color. I'm not. I put little dots down and then I evaluate it and then I adjust it and then I'll get it right eventually. And like Beth is super precise with a brush. Like she just doesn't miss with a brush, and that's why those miniatures happen the way they happen. But not me. Like I'll put it in a shape. It might be a little wonky, and then I'll trim it with the environment, and I'll just problem solve my way through it, and I'll get there eventually. And so, we all have our strong suits. Precision isn't really my thing.
I think you're very precise.
Yeah, I also think so. I mean, the dog, the way you've been painting the eyes, that was very precise.
Well, I get there in a roundabout way is maybe a better way to put it. Yeah, I don't like leaving things that just don't work, like sloppy lines that need to have detail or whatever. I just to just put that brushstroke down exactly where I want it to go and leave it, that's tough. But yeah.
Your work is a good balance of loose work, but I mean it's not sloppy. Definitely not sloppy.
Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as sloppy. I'm just talking about like brush precision. Like, how long it takes me to make a miniature? Probably about the same amount of times it would take me to paint a 30 by 40.
That's actually true. Because I could actually hear your voice that's saying the exact same thing, that miniature takes as long as a normal size painting.
But everyone expects it to be like, a couple $100 instead of like, multiple thousands. So like a 30 by 40. So I don't really enjoy miniature all that much. I like looking at it.
I just find miniature so charming, and I totally understand if there's a highly detailed miniature painting of flowers, and if it's priced higher than a normal size painting. I totally get it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I have a price structure that's based in just categories. So you have to try, sort of draw the line somewhere between miniature and small, and then medium, and then large, and then mural, right? And the price per square inch gets lower the bigger the painting gets, like those categories. But there's a range between each of them, so that, like, let's just say I have one that I really, really like and I worked really hard on it. I might charge more within that category than something that I just kind of put together. I'm not really feeling it as much, but it's good enough to represent me. Like, it can be on the lower end of that range, but I try to be consistent. I'm not the most consistent, but I'm not beholden to any galleries either. I was with uh, what's the one in Massachusetts? Marine Arts Gallery, and it was in Salem, and then it moved to Marblehead in Massachusetts. And that was a good gallery. It was cool to have my work displayed next to, like, Emile Groupé and some of those great sort of nautical painters. Um,
That's really cool.
but I don't know. They were just so bad at communication, and it was a pain to ship the work all the way to Marblehead, and we just kind of fell off with them. The Dog and Horse shut down for good reason. I mean, the brick and mortar portion of it, because they were paying like 500,000 a year in rent, something like that, or I don't know.
Bill Wilson used to.
Wait, what?
Is this Dog and Horse? Is this the same place where Bill Wilson?
No.
Had...
No, that was John Pence. Dog and Horse was in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Good gallery, and she really, she really did all the things that you would want a gallerist to do. Like, some gallerists just take your work and don't really work to sell the painting. It's like they just hope people come in and whatever. But she really went out of her way to promote the work and the artists. She represented a huge dog painter at one point, Joseph Solkowski. If you know his work, he's spectacular.
I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, look him up. You have to. He's great. Joseph Solkowski. His work is loose, but it's vibrant and it's accurate enough. I don't know. I really enjoy his work. I don't think she represents him anymore, but she was part of getting his book together. Like, I think Janie Spector, she helped spearhead that. But yeah, Joseph Solkowski is fantastic. He's a must view. All right, so I want all these expressive wrinkles in the forehead. I think this red here might just need a little transition in it. These edges need to be worked, but I'm getting into that time of the painting where I really want to be careful to not overdo it, to leave some of the spontaneity of the painting, to make it all about the eyes and let the brushwork kind of fizzle out from there. And just leave some of that artistry in there. Okay.
Very cute puppy.
What's that?
It's a very cute puppy.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, he's really good.
Solkowski? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. It took me a while to get him because Google was, really picking up some different people for me. But
Nothing too bad, I hope.
no, Kozlowski, Solsky.
Well, I had a student. I told her about where to find some royalty-free images if she wanted to find some high-quality images to work from. So I told her about FreePic. So it's FREEPIK, and she said she went home and looked it up and got to some really bad images. So I pulled it up on the computer on the next class, and it's like, well, I mean, this is the site I'm talking about. I was like, oh, that's definitely not what came up. So she must have had a typo or something. But yeah, not not good high quality images of animals. We'll put it that way. FreePic is FREEPIK.com.
Oh yeah.
And there's other ones. There's Upsplash. There's what are some of the other ones?
Unsplash, that's a good site.
Yeah. Pixabay, Pexels.com. They're good. And they might have some kind of instruction to give the photographer credit, and that's fair.
Yeah.
That, or you have to subscribe, and then you don't have to for some reason. So I don't get that really, but so far so good with Ollie. I think I made my clean getaway.
Hopefully the ibuprofen works.
Yeah. Usually does. It's usually enough. He like I said, he gets wicked leg pains when he has growth spurts. I don't remember that with Hans. He's gonna lose his first tooth soon. Oh, I told you that.
Yeah.
It's just hanging on by a thread.
Is it one of his front tooth?
It's his bottom front tooth. Like right in the middle, but it like he messes with it all day. He like pushes it out and it looks really freaky. Yeah, I keep putting this off. I need to get into here. So I'm gonna get these wrinkles in. I'm gonna soften those up there. I want to do a little bit more to the ears. I don't know. I don't think they necessarily need it. The focal point is starting to work. So again, I want everything to yield to that. And I did not do that even close to one of my early things to do. Again, I like a lot of build up in the abstract before I refine subject matter. But now that I've put it into this network of values, you can see a lot of that initial middle tone is still there in a lot of places. And that's part of the goal. I always change it if I need to, but for the most part, if I go really rich and kind of dark with those middle tones, all I'm doing is just kind of desaturating around it, and it almost always has its place in the value arc. If you're slow enough and categorical enough to leave it when it works. So by category, I just mean like, is it a turning shadow, reflected light, cast shadow, highlight? If it's in that category, and I know what brown fur looks like with this light source on it, then I know what range to keep it into and how to balance stuff around it. And so it just makes the process Not easy isn't the right goal. Not necessarily to make it easier, but I like how efficient it is, and I like how malleable it is. I like how many decisions I can make from that simplified stage. And so this is just kind of being picked apart, one little sort of further blocking down the road. It's just one more degree of tightening, and then I step back and evaluate, and then just one more step closer, step back, evaluate. And by step back, I'm not actually getting away from it. It's just, that would be better if I did, but more of just like a trying to see things as a whole instead of a collection of small parts. Fun. All right. Lost time with Ollie, so maybe this will be a little bit shorter of a demo. Remember, some of them, I'll say I'm done for like a good 2 hours before I actually put the brushes up. So I might as well start the process now. Love this shape that's happening in the sort of furrowed eyebrows, or not eyebrows, but like, I guess where Proceras would be if it was a human. There you go. Not levator labii superior or saliqui nasi. That would be like right here.
That's the Elvis muscle.
Elvis, yeah. But dogs can snarl.
Yeah, I was actually thinking
You know,
that.
they'll probably have a levator labii superior or saliqui nasi.
Yeah, or some version of it probably.
Yeah, canine version.
They're very expressive with their faces, actually, and especially with their eyes.
Oh, this type. I actually don't know what this breed is. Oh yeah, maybe not a pug. No, pugs are expressive. They're just goofy looking. They're cute.
It's very expressive. The eyes are very expressive.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good photo. I forgot how I came across it.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, did you take this picture yourself?
I don't remember. I've had this in my photo collection for a very, very long time.
Okay.
Yeah, I just never did anything with it. And I like the photo a lot. I just think a lot of times when I do animals, I'm doing longer hair animals. And this is very short hair, but very expressive with those wrinkles, and it's a high quality photo. I wouldn't be surprised if I got it from one of those sites, you know.
The ones that you're talking about right now?
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you precisely how I got it. All right, so these ripples up here, these wrinkles, they're starting to get just refined enough to call them without, you know, again, getting into tiny hairs or any sort of allegiance to, you know, exactly like this photo. So I might take a break from these real soon and just work on this little area here. Whoa there. and then work on the ears a little bit, maybe pull together some of these jumps of value. That might be it. I mean, I don't know. Let's see how I feel in just a little bit, but yeah.
Oh, well.
How exciting.
Maybe decided that for you.
Oddly, this is the third of these Alla Prima series that's happened. I don't.
It's okay.
Yeah, that turned out good. The one that didn't go so well was the Holly, and the reason for that is because, like, if this hits, it's going to be okay because it has that absorbency and the texture of the canvas. But that was raw metal, and that had nothing. So when that hit the ground, it streaked right through those leaves, and it really did a lot of damage. And then I had that film of like correcting the paint on the metal, and that was really annoying. And I was able to get rid of that with Awesome on a clean brush, but yeah, that was a setback. I kept.
Sold.
What's that?
That painting sold.
I know it did. Thank you. But you can't tell. I mean, I think I recovered from that fall pretty well. I don't think it looks like it got fell and had a huge track of distorted paint. So this is how I take a small break on my painting. I just move over to the background and do a little bit more. I've been hacking away at those little wrinkles for a while. Keep wanting to call them ripples. I don't know why. But I kind of like the background getting a little bit rough with single like track brush strokes. Sometimes those are distracting. Always just give it a try. A lot of times with patterns, if you put it in right away, it'll look terrible until you get a lot. And when you get more in there, then it starts to look okay. I'm giving that a chance. But I like the brushwork right around the face, and I like how bright it is and how cold it is, especially with how warm the dog is, and most of the dog is in middle tone. Going really bright here in the background actually helps to make these highlights seem less bright, which I think is a good thing. So I don't know if that was completely in my plan, but again, I look out for little ways of creating contrasts that aren't necessarily light and dark or color or anything. It's just everything being vertical in the background creates an other. So this is dynamic, and that's all regimented. It's bright and lacking color, so this became dark and rich in color, via contrast. And then the dog reads powerfully as a dark silhouette against this brightness. And I like that. So here's the non-distorted version. If I can orient it correctly. I think I'm making it worse.
Very cute.
I like the background a lot.
Thanks.
And I feel very occasionally you do a white background.
You never know. Sometimes.
Very occasionally.
Yep, pretty rare. Yeah, because I normally like my extreme values in the subject matter. But in this case, the white makes the dog really rich in color. So it's not the value that I'm going for. It's more of the low chroma.
And probably because this dog doesn't have much white highlight, so the white background is actually helping.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, I feel
Yes.
if there is a white highlight, then the background can compete with the highlight.
Well said. Exactly right.
I think I was doing some still life painting. I want to do a white background, and then we had the same issue. That's what I said.
Well, it's okay to give it a try sometimes. You know, I do a lot of little experiments, and some of them really just don't work. But you gave them a try, and if you can if you can find a why it didn't work, then it helps you with problem solving on the next time. So like if I look at this and well, just like you said, it's like you put in the white and it competed with the highlights and it made them less special on the subject matter. And so now you'll look out for that the next time when you're deciding what creative decisions to do with your painting. You're gonna say, okay, well, I remember that time where the background was killing my white highlights, and maybe I'll come up with a different solution for this one, right? So I think if you let the painting be your teacher for a lot of this stuff, you really have a lot of problem solving tools as you move forward. And of course, I've done all these experiments that I relate, but when it gets to that experiential level, I think it sinks in just maybe a little bit more. When there's a little bit of a pain point, like I had to undo that whole background.
Yeah, undo the background is really painful. You have to work with all the outlines again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I struggle with that a lot.
Well, I mean, you were with me for some of these little Alla Primas, and you'll see me just saying, something about the background just really isn't working. I'm gonna try this, and it really, this is a big supporting area. It's really important. It can really make your painting quite dynamic, or really just kill it. The background is definitely not inconsequential, but the idea that it's the supporting character, it's not the main character. Maybe we just take it for granted sometimes, but you see it all the time in portrait. You see people blocking this head and then wondering why it looks flat or dull, or maybe they got their value range completely off. And it's like they were avoiding putting the hair in. It's like, well, the hair is a major container for the skin tone. You know, it's not unimportant. It's just you don't have to put 1,000 squiggles in there. You can just mass it in as you see when you squint, and it'll be that environment for you to read the values of the face. So definitely not inconsequential. So I'm starting to get a softness in here. Again, there is a point where I'll feel like it's too much, and I want to be really cognizant of that, to not cross over into just taking these areas outside of the eyes too far. I'm missing some of the red in here, though. I'm gonna bring some of that back. You can plug it into an equation saying that you're going to go from this washed out stuff to rich red and then to the brown red. And I'm just missing the rich red right now. Yeah. Getting close. So almost midnight. If I didn't stop to comfort a screaming 5-year-old, then it would be a solid 3 hours. I've gotten pretty far. Might just spend that, like 20 minutes that I lost. And then call it.
It looks really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Looks so distorted on the camera, though. So it's either me or it's the camera. But a lot of times that's just in my head. Like when I go to edit it, and it's just like, oh, okay. I thought that looked distorted, but it looks okay. I don't know. All right, getting close. So I just need to bring these wrinkles together. I'm going to bring the body together. And I think I'll be done. Actually, don't even have to look at the photo in this area because I just follow my system. If I just think about the ball and how, how this red-brown fur catches light and has the shadows, I could just make all this up now. We talk about that in gesture class where you just take enough notes. You could finish the drawing without the model. Obviously, better if you work from the model.
But I think even on sometimes on the model, you don't see all the anatomy landmarks.
Well, I don't think you're supposed to all the time.
But I mean, I've seen that because that's what makes your figure drawing look so good, because you sometimes put them in. I think probably at this level, you're probably not even thinking about it, but you put them in, and that makes it look really good.
Well, yeah, I mean that's true. I mean, learning anatomy is fantastic for figure drawing, and then it's not even just like, you might have medical anatomy, but have you applied it in an experiential way? So it's like when it becomes experiential and it's kind of more automatic, where you get an anatomy sense and you get a good idea of some of these proportions and you've practiced them so many times. Yeah, you can definitely make a lot of things happen. I, as an exercise, I love just, doing, I don't know, like 3-minute gestures and then seeing if I can continue them from memory or, from the notes I've taken. I think that's a lot of fun. Yeah. It's a good exercise. It really exposes, like, if you know that area enough to pull it off, like especially with all the foreshortening and stuff like that. It's tough, but I think it's really rewarding because it's I don't know, it's just like a little test. All right, I feel like chunking up some of the paint in here. I'll have to do a good color match. But just adding a little oomph to that triangle. So it'll have many different mechanisms for bringing your eye just right to there. So not only the, the more dynamic, high contrast shapes, but also the thick paint and some of these cool notes in here really give it a lot of nice distinction. I think we could probably get away with some, rich color notes too. Just experimenting with almost pure cad red right there. That might be fun. Just nothing too distracting, hopefully. All right, so I can. Oh, I never did. I never put the image in the chat. Lost a lot of time with Ollie. Of course, wouldn't trade that for the world. I always want to be there for my boy.
Are you still going to bring the wrinkles together a bit more?
I don't know. I'm starting to lose a little bit of the punch that they used to have, and I'm sort of thinking that less is more up here. I don't want them to look distracting. So that's the big deal.
I feel from the camera it looks a bit distracting.
So
the right forehead, the one you're working with.
Yeah.
Over there.
Well, it's super high contrast. You're right about that.
Yeah. It's like very similar stripes, or like 4 stripes, almost exactly the same over there.
Yeah. And that's kind of the fault of my own of just copying kind of what I see. They are really rhythmic, and the slight discrepancies in them need to definitely be played up. So you're definitely right about that.
Yeah, I think the other parts I like them. Just the wrinkles looks a bit distracting.
Yeah, I like how the dog has that expression.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, also the nose is really sticking out. The 3D structure looks pretty cool.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, I think now the wrinkles look much better.
Yeah. Well, they're still too much the same. So I knocked down the contrast big time, and I'll just hint at the starts of them. That's way too white though. And then maybe if I got this to curve differently than the rest of them, that would do it. So if this went like straight out, yeah. So it is kind of like what the photo's doing, but again, that doesn't matter. If it's if it's showing like all the same forms, then that's pretty boring looking. And you're right, it was commanding too much attention. So, always appreciate good feedback. Well, I appreciate any feedback. I could decide. But that was good feedback.
I think seeing from the camera sometimes will exaggerate those distracting things.
Well,
Yeah,
no, you're right about that.
Yeah, sometimes when I was taking photos of my painting and send it to you, then all of a sudden I noticed that some part is going wrong.
No, I think they were too dynamic. So I agree with you with that. And they were all too much the same. Those were both good observations.
I think now it's much better, at least from the camera. I can tell.
Thanks. Okay, and so if I get here and then leave those alone, that's starting to work. This corner doesn't work yet. And then dissolving out, hopefully don't have to define every little thing in the ear. So I'm going to try to avoid that. Get just enough to hopefully look accurate without over defined. Can't believe I dropped the painting again. Seriously, that's like the third time I've done it. Third different Alla Prima painting.
Oh, different. Okay.
Well, yeah, you saw it with the holly. I did it with this one, and I also did it with the eggshell. But you know, I got away with it with the eggshell, and for this one, I did not get away with it very well for the holly. That took a big repair. Yeah, that was pretty disappointing. Do you have the holly in a place where it can catch the light?
It's still at school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of these days.
I liked how that one turned out.
Yeah, it turned out nice. It was a toss up between that one and the gourd. And I love the gourd, but I had to choose one. So
I have to do something about the video for the gourd though. I think I edited it too short, and it I don't know. It's not performing quite as well as some of the other ones, but I feel like it's one of my better Alla Primas. I gotta do something about that.
oh, okay. I'm not sure what you mean, but
Well, just look at the analytics. Like the eggshell painting Alla Prima is at like, I don't know, 1170 or 1180 or something like that. That really super short edit of the gourd with the radishes, that's down like at, I don't know, like 60 something. So I feel like I need to redo that video.
oh, you mean the time?
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the number of views.
Oh, okay.
Which technically isn't as important as watch time, but I think the watch time is pretty low too. So I've got to re-edit the video, maybe make it a little bit longer, explain more, and then do more with, like, I don't know, the way it's marketed.
But the gourd painting got viewed a lot, right?
The gourd? No, I'm saying the gourd painting hardly got anything.
Oh,
That's
which
what
one got a bunch?
The eggshell.
Oh, the eggshell, right.
And like I said, I mean, I think the gourd, I don't know, is easily as good. I mean, I'm not going to say, you know, how it appeals to other people, but I don't know. I feel like I did something wrong with that edit, that it's not getting the attention. So I thought that was weird.
Yeah, I don't know much about that, but yeah.
All right, so winding this down, and definitely don't want to take it too much further. I have the body a little too simple, and the drop off of style to the ear I feel like is a little bit too big of a jump. So I'm just going to bring it together a little bit. And then, what do you think?
I love it.
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I like that you put a more shiny highlight into the eye.
Yeah, that's hard. That's not, I mean, there's a tiny highlight, and I think it's coming from a distant window. But yeah, that I put a sparkle on this one.
That makes the face look more cute.
Well, it definitely brings a lot more attention to the eye, which is a really good place for attention. But again, thanks for the feedback. I like hearing that stuff. When you make a creative decision and then somebody points it out, that's good. Felt like these jumps of values were too big. Let's get some cools in there.
Hans, I'm going to say good night, okay?
Good night.
Hi, Liz.
Thanks for
Thank you very
watching.
much. You're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Liz.
Neat. Okay. So I'll show you what it looks like now with a little less of that distortion. And again, I'm open to any insights or whatever, but I'm kind of looking at closing this down soon. Just thinking that it's got some neat effects in that it's not overly defined everywhere. I'm sort of bringing together the chest. I'm just thinking I better be very careful how much I do, just to not bring too much attention to it. But also, I like the idea of it fading in intensity from focal point to, just less refined. And the shoulder just needs a little bit of work. All right, so I need to take a step back from this. But I'm pretty happy with this as a, rather quick painting.
It looks great, Hans.
Thanks.
I'll be saying my good night.
Good night, Malika. Thanks for joining.
Night.
Good night.
Okay. I didn't get as pronounced a head tilt as this dog, but I'm gonna live with that. Paint. Okay, so I'm toying with the idea of some pretty thick impastos in here. They might look a little odd before they look okay, because they'll be a little out of place. There's too bright. Again, some thick, chunky paint might be nice. I think it'd also be nice to cool it down just a little bit. Way too cool. Yikes. Better. Yeah, I like that. Sometimes when you're adding a new element, it takes a little bit of patience because it'll just seem out of place at first. But this thicker paint is going to read with just a lot more strength. Assuming I can. Assuming I can put the brush in the right spot. Always an issue. Yeah, so I don't think it necessarily needed that impasto, but I really like it. And the thick paint really brings three-dimensional form out. I think just as a color note, I can get a little bit bluer with the nose. I think that would be a nice touch. And I'm just thinking of these little expressive elements that aren't really necessary. They're just nice. So bringing blue into all this red will give the nose a lot of pop. I'm adding thicker paint even in the nose too. Yeah, I like that blue a lot. So now I'm just doing finishing touches, and you know, a lot of it's just going to be these little almost inconsequential things that might make all the little tiny bit of difference, and enough of them add up to be something that makes the painting hopefully a little special. We're not reinventing the wheel here, but you know, just thinking of possibilities. Ha. This red in here, I think, is about right to the photo, and it just doesn't read well in the painting. We look at photos differently than we look at paintings. I think it's because everyone assumes that everything is intentional in a painting, whereas there's a lot of things that just the camera does that we take for granted in a photo, and don't look for that kind of depth and softness, and just accept whatever the camera did. Yeah, that helped. All right. Well, I think I probably should call it. If I did any more to it, probably wouldn't be much. What would be nice is if, you know, if some of these values were maybe just a little bright, then I could glaze the whole thing with like a very thin sienna, and then you know, just punch the highlights back out, and then it would be keyed up just a little less bright. But kind of like how much punch it has, especially with all this thick paint in here now. So I think I'm going to sign it and be done. But thank you to everyone who watched and, of course, participated. All right. One last thing. All right, that's it. Done.
Cool. Yeah, that's a nice position to put the signature. And I like the color. Yeah. Yeah, I sometimes feel it's hard to decide where to sign, and then I just leave it.
Yeah. No, I really don't like signing paintings, especially not on a wet painting. But there's something kind of alla prima about like signing before the end of the sit, like, you know, just not having to do that on the second sitting. So.
Yeah, very good.
Whoa, watch out, camera. I don't know what I'm doing on the other screen. There it is. Yeah. There.
Yeah, I like the redness that you put in the face. A little bit touch of the red.
Thanks. I still feel like the camera is making the muzzle seem small, but you know, I think it's just the camera distortion for one, and for two, I could do something expressive with an outline. Just, oops, don't miss. Jeez. Totally missed. And let's get rid of that. There, better. So if I came in with like a pure red outline, that would work as kind of a funky element to it. I'll use a different brush. This brush is not giving me the edge I want. But like if I could expand this cheek out with a bit of an edge. And I'm just gonna add like a, I don't know, 32nd of an inch to the outside border. And I can do it with a bit of a hard edge outline because again, I'm dissolving from realistic to not abstract really, but tighter to looser at least. And so I'll make the gel just a tiny bit bigger. And I don't know. I think the outline is a little quirky but nice. It flattens a little bit, and I think that's okay. So yeah, that, I don't know. I guess it would be for some and not for others, but I'm gonna do that on this side too. And again, I'm just intentionally going a little flatter with the overall painting, just because the style is from focus to brush stroke. But you know, some of those old, those 19th century guys, if you look closely, they have a really fine outline around some of their figures, and it looks really nice. It doesn't necessarily flatten it too much. I mean, I don't think it's as dynamic as some of the 17th century guys, but I don't think it was meant to be, the same effect. So just getting a little outline around there can look kind of nice.
And also, you're not putting the outline everywhere, so it's like a bit lost and found.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
But again, creating a starkness for the dog, you can problem solve two things at the same time. You can say, well, the muzzle seems maybe a tiny bit small. I don't think quite as small as I'm seeing in the video camera. But that I don't know, like 32nd of an inch or maybe even 64th of an inch everywhere, that adds up. So it addressed two things at the same time. I think that outline's too harsh right here. Get rid of that. Yeah, that helped. All right, cool. I better stop doing these nitpicks. All right. Well, again, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, let me know when you are doing this again. Yeah, it's always a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, I meant to do it on Saturday, but Ollie.
Actually, it's better because I was working on Saturday till very late at night.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working until like 2 a.m. It was crazy.
It was, yeah. Well, that would have been hard for you for sure. But like Saturday, it was just kind of consistent with those other Alla Primas, but it was just I had such a hard time getting Ollie down to sleep. Again, I think it's this growth spurt he's going through. And then I was gonna do it again on Monday, and it was the same deal. It's like he just would not go down. And I was just like, okay, I'll just get it the next time. So tonight it was just like I really wanted to do it, and then of course, he wakes up screaming and needing my help.
Yeah, but I think it's good that you are there to help him.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, he's my boy. Love him.
Is Beth around?
She is away.
Oh, I see.
So no.
Yeah, then you have to keep an eye on Ali.
Yep. Well, I actually heard him, all the way from the upstairs, and I'm here in the basement talking to you all, and I have a little space heater running, and it's kind of loud. I'm just surprised I could hear him.
That's parent.
Yep. That's just the way it goes. All right, I have to be done. Like I said, it usually.
Next time I can join your Saturday class. I haven't done that for a while.
Yeah, well, you're welcome every time. They were trying to talk me into doing this Saturday, and if I could get, I don't know, 4 people, I would do it. I know it's so close to Christmas. It's just like, everyone's got plans.
I can do it this Saturday.
You can?
Let me know. Yeah, I can do it.
Well,
I'm not working.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and say, well, we'll do it. And then, yeah, We have to get the school ready for a Christmas Eve party anyway.
I see.
And I prematurely canceled saying that we can't have class on Christmas Eve, but I had the calendar completely wrong, which is pretty common for me. So, all right. Anyway, that was fun. So, thanks for joining.